Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Intrepid radio program. This is Scotty Roberts, your host, and you're watching this live on my YouTube channel tonight. It is technically not a radio show because I'm not broadcasting on our radio network tonight, which is Odyssey Radio, ODYSY1.com. Go on over, check all the goodness that's Odyssey Radio. We are off Odyssey for a little bit while we're in the makeshift studios and the makeshift lifestyle until we get everything all set up for that. So, yes, you see radio. This is visual radio, radio of the mind and the eye. And so, welcome to the show tonight. Glad that you decided to come on over here and spend the next hour with me. And you can also go check out, for those of you who are going to hear this in archive over on Odyssey Radio, that is, this YouTube channel is youtube.com/Mr. Scotty Roberts. And come on over, check it out. Those of you who are here already, I want you to go ahead and take a look at all the videos that we have archived on this channel, and you can spend a vast amount of hours. Look at me, my speech is all stumbly tonight. I don't know why, but you can spend a vast amount of hours listening to and watching all the archived shows that we have here. There's almost 460 of them, if I'm not mistaken, by last count. And so you can also become a member of this channel. That'll cost you $2 a month, $5 a month, or $15 a month, depending on what you want to do. Hit the join button down below, and you can see the 3 different memberships that you can join up with. And so, Field Guy's playing a Joe Biden on us tonight. He doesn't know where he is. And so, welcome to the show, Field Guy and Beth Kirkham. Good to see you. And Steve Clark, how you doing, sir? And who else did I see in here? Was it just Field Guy and Steve Clark going back and forth for a little while there before the show began? It looks like it. And so I want to welcome to the show. There's Master Finn. Good to see you, Master Finn. And my son was just watching. He put in the movie online. He was watching the last Pirates of the Caribbean movie, and so I'm all in ship shape and Bristol fashion for welcoming Master Finn on board tonight. And so, folks, thanks for being here. I appreciate it. And tonight we're going to talk more about consciousness. And I hope that this is a topic that you're getting something out. It can be very meaty. And I want to talk about what role human consciousness plays in quantum systems. I want to talk about the consciousness in the brain, the greatest mystery of the human being. And I think that's where we're going to kind of start out with this tonight, as we get into that topic. And there was something very interesting. I had a weird dream last night. Now, you all know that how I feel about Native American issues, and that I'm a huge advocate of Native American rights in the United States. And of course, you could tell that just by listening to some of my past shows on Wounded Knee, the Bury My Heart at Wounded Knee series that we did, the Conquering of the American West. And I had kind of a weird dream last night. I don't remember all the details now, of course, as a good 14, 15 hours has passed since I woke up. But I was in a little cabin somewhere, and it was more of a house, a little bit run down, buying it, the kind of house you get into, you go, hey, it's a fixer-upper, we're good. And there were Native Americans that were, it's like in some of your dreams, you know how you play out the roles, and yet you are also that third person omniscient. You know everything that's going to be happening, but you still have to play out the role. And somehow I knew that they were plotting to attack us, but they were not in their villages or teepees or anything like that. And they were modern dressed. Think blue jeans and shirts, and they were all in this big house that was across the way from us. They were like next door neighbors, but we're kind of out in the middle of nowhere too. And so they were all coming over and partying with us. But what the omniscient mind knew in the dream was that they were going to be attacking us. And the attack never really took place. There were a couple of little skirmishes or hints at it, but it never really happened. And I woke up wondering why I was having that dream about Native Americans. Now it's kind of interesting. So that I would have a dream like that when I have no negative feelings in my subconscious for Native Americans, and I have a lot of respect and a lot of pathos and a lot of empathy for what happened in the 18th and the 19th centuries. And so I just thought it was interesting to bring that up. The way the subconscious works, or the conscious mind while sleeping, interprets events for us and brings them into our lives. We talked about them when we talked about dreams, and um, how your sleeping mind or your subconscious mind is the mind that will try to process information. And so I still haven't quite deciphered what that information was yet, but it was very interesting. And because I don't consider them, even in my subconscious, them being Native Americans, to be enemies of any sort to me. So I don't know what that was about, what it meant. If anybody's got some insight on that, throw it up in the chat room. That'd be very interesting. And so Field Guy says, I used to have dreams about killing people. I have no idea why. I think some of those are stress related dreams, anxiety ridden dreams. Um, Scott Lowry says it was in the 60s yesterday and snow today. It's going to be in the 60s up in Minneapolis and St. Paul area by the end of the week, so I have heard. And so it's going to start warming up there, and all the snow is going away until we get the late March blizzards, which we always get. So that's coming. And if we don't get them up there, I would be surprised because it happens every year. This morning, now you're going to say, hey, Steph Cuero Queen, good to see you. And a feeling of fending off threats to your homestead. It came out in a scene that you could relate closely to. That might be very spot on, Matt. My mind was kind of trying to toy with going there, but you just spelled it out. I think that might be something about that. And I miss the winter warmth of North Dakota. I'll bet you do, Scott Lowry. The winter warmth of North Dakota? Isn't North Dakota, the Dakotas, notoriously frigid in the winter? I know in Minneapolis, we would always say when it hits the Dakotas, hits us in a day or so over in the Minneapolis area. So, yeah, you're exactly right, Mac. Down here doing what I have to do to fight for my space. And, it's funny. We're getting our first big jobs that are coming into the pike, and then we're getting delays. They're suddenly hit with stalling and delays and things like that. I almost wonder if somebody that was representing our first big paying job down here it was really pushing for me to get the bid, the estimate to them, and suddenly that person is not pushing anymore, and we're kind of wondering why they're not calling back. And you try to be polite. You can't be pushy and go like, hey, how come you're not calling us back when you said you would? Can't do that. So you just say, I've said, hey, we got crews on standby. They're ready to go as soon as you green light it. Looking forward to talking to you. And so we'll see how maybe some of that plays. I've been more, you could call it stressed and more anxious and more anxiety ridden in the last few days than I have in a very long time over anything, because we're putting all our efforts into this. There's no money coming in the door. There's no income other than what we already had, and waiting for this new work to come in. So it's like that right now. And so you kind of get the idea. Hey, Barbie D, good to see you. And did somebody else come in? Scott Lowry, good to see you as well. If I didn't already say hello. So that's some of what's going on in the current down here. I had a little mishap this morning. You're going to start thinking I'm accident ridden, and I'm really not. Just had a lot of little tiny things. I like to call it my adventurous lifestyle. My favorite quote from the original Indiana Jones movie, Raiders of the Lost Ark, was, "It's not the years, honey, it's the mileage." And so I've got all these accumulated things. Do you remember how, when was it? It was almost last summer or autumn. I had slipped and fallen and landed on my chest and cracked a rib over here somewhere. And that healed up really well. And now this morning, I'm outside letting my friend who's out of town, left his dog here. Sam and I are taking care of his dog. And we let him outside this morning. And what should happen but across the street, the man who lives over there let his two kind of pit breed dogs out. And they're nice dogs, but he let them out. And of course, Gipper, my friend's dog, immediately looks over at me. You know that look where they go, and they look at you like, "I'm going to run." And you go, "Oh, no, you're not." And he's like, "Oh, yeah, I am." Zip, and he's gone. And he's chasing these other dogs. And the owner of those two dogs comes over, and we're out in the middle of the street, which is very quiet. Hardly anybody drives back here. And he's yelling for his dogs, and I'm yelling for Gipper. And I finally, at one point, I catch Gipper, and he doesn't have his collar on. And I've got him by the fur, like back here, and I'm holding him while the other guy's rounding up his dogs. And while I'm doing that, the one dog takes off for the other owner, and Gip tries to run after him, and I lose my grip on him, and I grab him again a little bit further down just to try to stop the 20 minutes of running around the neighborhood trying to get this dog back into the house. And I got to tell you, that is a pet peeve of mine. Dogs are meant to be obedient to their masters. And for as much training as he's had, he's still a pup mentality. He bolts. And so I barely caught him again. Then he slipped out of my fingers, pulled me over off of my feet onto the concrete. It's a concrete road out here. And I land on the concrete, and I flip over because I see my legs going over my head. And I laid there for a second. It didn't really hurt. It was one of those falls. It's like, I'm a stuntman. Don't do this at home, folks. That was for your entertainment. And so I did that roll, and I laid there for just a split second, and I sat up, and I went, "Oh, that hurt." And I just sat there. I couldn't get up. It's almost, you know how you feel when you get the wind knocked out of you? The last thing you feel like doing is just jumping up and going, "I'm okay." So I sat there for a second, and I went, "Oh, something's hurt." And I could feel it in my ribs again. And I'm feeling it the whole time I'm telling this story, but I didn't want to get to the upshot of the story yet, so I'm not shrieking out in pain. And I'm like, "Oh my God." And all day now, that my ribs, kind of right below my man boob, my rib, like the second one up, I can feel that it's if these are your ribs like this, one of them is stuck out, like that. And I thought, did I break that? Did I do something? Is it just out of place now? And so finally, by the end of the day, oh, and then, by the way, we got the truck stuck in the mud down here. And we were at the end of somebody's driveway and got stuck in their mud. We could not get that out. I'm trying to push the truck, a big dually, huge, however much it weighs. And I tried pushing. I'm like, "Oh my God, I can't push because of my rib cage." And that's whenever I cough or I sneeze or I laugh or breathe, it was giving me some problems. And so finally, my son made me go to the ER. I went to the ER. They took X-rays, and of course, they said, It's really hard to tell with ribs, but you probably cracked them a little bit from the sound of it and all the feeling around they did and all of that. And so they gave me some meds to take, which I was going to take some oxys and have a beer before we started the show, so we could have a repeat of the oxy beer show. But that didn't happen tonight. I won't take it till I go to bed. And so I'm in lots of pain. And the pain is right now through this whole monologue, the pain has been at about a 4 or a 5. And if I cough or sneeze, oh man, I sneezed in the ER. And the ER, by the way, down here, it was like, it took 2.5 hours. And we just got back like an hour before the show started. And I'm standing in there because I didn't feel like sitting. Sitting down was an effort. And yeah, what a miserable, no good, low down, terrible day. And so I'm standing in the ER, and I'm just looking at my email and stuff, and then I feel a sneeze coming up, and I'm like, uh-oh, and I grab my chest. It's kind of like this. I gotta hold the rib cage in, and I sneezed, and it hurt, and I yelled out. I'm in the ER, and I go, "Son of a bitch!" Ow, it hurts to even do that, and then I laugh, and it hurts when I laugh. But I yelled, "Son of a bitch!" And then I went, "Oh, sorry, everybody." I know everybody heard me. I said, "Just a little pain down here, that's all." And thank you, Michelle. I appreciate that. So, by the way, they told me something I never knew. They said, "We're not going to wrap it." They said, like you see on TV in the movies, they said, "Don't ever wrap a cracked rib because when you breathe, it constricts your breathing, and you can actually get pneumonia produced by not breathing right." And I said, "You got to be kidding me." Scott Lowry just asked, "Who's rubbing who?" I don't know yet, Scott. I have no idea. So, a nice field guy. That's a pretty picture. You spent 12 hours in an ER with pus dripping out your elbow. I'll bet that was tough right after the storms trying to get anything. So, yeah, there's no shame in reporting the sick bay. At least I didn't have an Andorian stab me in the kidney, which happened on the original Star Trek. So that was my exciting afternoon. We went from one thing to another today, from the dog getting away and having to spend, it's not so much being in the great outdoors and running with the dog. It's when you have to run to catch the dog because the dog's like, "Hey, fuck you come and get me. I'm loose now." And you're like, I yelled at him. I said, "You disobedient cur." And I'm sure I hurt his feelings. But that's about the rationale of animals, too. Do animals know when you're trying to hurt their feelings? "You idiot," you say to a dog, and the dog's like. So anyway, he got his little bit of freedom in. And then we got his new harness collar and his leash. So now he's no longer allowed outside without a leash on him. And he wears that collar harness. That's his new outfit. That's what he shall ever be in. Steph says, "Oh, Scotty, I think you can have my other nickname, Murphy's Law." There it is. It was that kind of day today. So clients lacking today, not calling back, not getting the thing done they've been pushing for, which makes me think they might be checking out somebody else's bid against ours. So there's that. Then there's the dog getting away. Then there's chasing the dog. Then there's catching him, falling on my ass. I don't even know how I affected my ribs. I don't know exactly how I felt. And but I will say this, and I've said it jokingly before. 25 years ago, a fall like that was like, "Hey, no big deal. I bounce." Now it's just I can do the same thing. I can do the tuck and roll. I can do the stunt fall. It just hurts more. So it's not the years, honey. It's the mileage. And so then, of course, the ER. And the ER down here was strange. I don't see Doug in here, so maybe he can't comment on that field guy. You're a little closer, but um, it's like the hospital was like, it felt old. It was like where I have gone and had my heart stuff done up in St. Paul, Minnesota. It's like everything is pristine. There's murals on the wall and fine art and on pedestals and cabinets and music playing. And everything's painted and tiled and everything's perfect. It's like perfect. And here it was like there was paint chipped on the walls. I'm seeing in the room. I'm like, oh my, there's nobody noticed that, or they're too busy to take care of that. Um, and it was like old. It seemed like the equipment was old. When I went to the chiropractor, when I fell on my butt off the ladder here, a few 3 weeks ago now, I went to the chiropractor. They took X-rays, and those X-rays were ready like within 30 seconds, and they're up on the screen. They go, "Come here and look at this." Literally 30 seconds. And here at the hospital, they said, "Oh, it normally takes 45 minutes to an hour to get our." Oh, look, see, you still got the thing on. Um, it takes 45 minutes to an hour to get our X-rays. So that's, and it was just, it wasn't dirty. It was just, it felt old, and it felt a little unkempt. But there's that. So that was my day. How was your day? And it makes you appreciate the finer things in life. Steve Clark says they was doing voodoo in the back room. Yeah, probably. Here, here, take this doll and stick the pin in here and see if it works. And then I sneezed and about blew up my chest. So they wanted to make sure, they're still from when they split my chest open and the sternum, that it's all wired shut still. You can still, here, come here, put your hand down there. Put your hand down there. You feel along there. You can actually feel the, like, what they use, zip ties or something. And so those are in there still. I can't pull this off, so I'll have to cut it off when I'm done. So all of that to say, how does that, you might ask, play into your theme of the conscious mind? Well, you know what? It really doesn't. It has nothing to do with the conscious mind. Does my dream have something to do with the conscious mind that I mentioned? Yeah, a little bit. I think it has a lot to do with what goes on in the conscious mind and what the conscious mind then takes into its subconscious during its sleep state. The things that your mind plays with you, the stories it tells you, the things that it wants you to process. And it gives you these weird stories to have to process. And this dream was a little bit like, you could almost say it fit that um, series of dreams I used to have about the repetitive theme of being at war, being battling, being in the military. Now, I wasn't military in this dream, but there was definitely something going on. There was conflict brewing between groups of people. So it's very interesting. So thank you, Brianna, if you were talking to me on that one. I appreciate that. Morgan Snow, good to see you. Trying to keep the peace here between the 20 something kids. Oh, yeah. You think 20 something kids, that's you got to look at me. Hey, you guys are adults. Act like you know something. So I get it, though. I understand. Oh, wait. I'm sorry. Not 20 something, 20 plus age. You're talking about a group of 20 kids? Oh, good God. Good luck to you. We send you our best wishes and hope you're doing all right. CW, thank you, CW. Working on it. And I'm not really complaining. This stuff, when I talk about it here, I'm not complaining about it. It's stories. It's the stories about my life that I sometimes transfer over and say, do you experience this? Are these things you recognize? And other things that go on with you. I use all the stuff that happens in my life for me as a catalyst to learn something, to teach a lesson, to share a good story. The Gaelic Storm song, old songs and old stories, they keep us alive. And so that's kind of what I do. And that's from the song "Kiss Me, I'm Irish." Kiss me, I'm Irish. I am the wild rover. Um, my eyes, they are shining. And over. I like my whiskey and I like to dance. So if you're feeling as lucky as me, take a chance and kiss me, I'm Irish. And so, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, that just popped into my head, so I sang. So, Corey Blake, good to see you, brother. Glad you are here. Barbie D, did I say hi to you earlier? Or are you just in? Sometimes my days blend together and I'm like, did I see you just now or was that from last night? So, anyway, so I got to take off my shirt for pretty nurses today. I'm starting to get to that age where, oh my God, when I met Rainey 15 years ago, I was still feeling like the young buck guy had the dark hair and the muscles, and I was in good shape and all of that. And, it was like, hi there, Rainey. You don't know me, but I'm going to take off my shirt. And she said, well, you don't know me, and I'm going to take off mine as well. And boom, now we've been together ever since. But now I'm getting to be an older guy. I'm 60. And, I got the big scar here. You've all seen the scar. But the scar, it comes with, I've got all this discoloration in my skin that runs around. And it's like, ick, that's gross. I don't like that. I don't even like to take my shirt off at the beach anymore or the swimming pool. And so here I am. And it's always, when you have to take off your shirt or your clothes or your stupid hospital gown flips open and your butt's hanging out, it's always in front of really hot, good looking nurses. And that was my plight today. There's the frosting on the cake today. The nurse said, I have to take an x-ray. She said, you got a metal zipper on your shirt. She said, are you comfortable taking it off? I can get you a gown. I go, I'm comfortable. And I was like, oh, you want to just do it in slow-mo. You're like, oh, and you start lifting it all up. I didn't do it in slow-mo. I just said, I said to her, I said, you be careful now. I said, beach body about to be revealed. I said, I want no gasping, no dropping of your jaw. And she's laughing, of course, already because she knows I don't have a beach body. She could probably see that I used to maybe have one, but there was none of that today. And she knew I was making fun. And so I got to take off my shirt with all my scars and all my junk and in front of two very good-looking nurses. And they're taking their x-rays and so on. I'm trying to, okay, stand now with your head this way up against the thing. You got to stand with your chest here and do this, and then spread your arms up and hold them out. You look like I look like an albatross pinned up against the backboard of the X-ray machine. So I'm like, there you go. So anyway, I'm seeing some, let's see, people, favorite bands are being talked about. I have a radio body, says Field Guy. Brianna says, I have scars on my face, knee, and leg. They aren't scars, they are battle wounds of victory, or else they wouldn't be sewn up. I have scars everywhere, says Field Guy. Where are the men, Scotty? There weren't any. The doctor was a guy. Everybody else was female. So I made it, said Doug Stack. Welcome, Doug. Good to see you. And I love the song Scars to Your Beautiful. I don't know that one, Michelle. I'll have to look that one up. I don't know who you're kidding with, Corey. I thought that was a serious question. Were they men, Scotty? Oh, the women. No, they weren't. They were actually women, and they were kind of cute. So, and Sam was waiting in the truck for me, and I said, you should probably come in because it's going to take a while. And I said, just look for the hot blonde nurse, and she'll guide you here. And of course, then all these things happen, and this is what I say: they seemed a little old and disorganized at this hospital. But they needed me to pee in a cup like they always do. And I'm like, okay. And so I pee in a cup, and then I'm looking, there's no little turntable cabinet that you put it in, and the nurse lab on the other side gets it. It's like, okay, I got this cup. What am I supposed to do with this? There's no label on it, so I'm not going to just sit it there. And so I walk out, and you just have to. Some people get embarrassed by that stuff. You know what you do when your the events going on in your life tend to embarrass you or stress you out or do whatever. You got to make comedy out of it, and you make a joke. You make it, and I'm not a quiet person. And I said in this tone of voice, I came out and there's a dozen nurses sitting behind this desk, and I said, "Excuse me," I said, "Can anybody handle my urine?" And I pointed at it, and they all looked for a second. I said, "Who would like to take this from me?" I said, "It has no label." And they said, "Oh," and they all start chuckling, and they're like, "Well, take it back to your room, and somebody will bring a label for it and come and get it." I'm like, "Thank you." I said, "Don't mind me. My urine and I are going to take a walk back down to my room." And so, I don't know if that's exactly what I said, but the tone was impromptu, and you just try to have fun with it. You don't let it stress you out. Embrace it. Ow, ow, I touched it up. Embrace it, I would say. Warmed it up for you. There you go. Hey, excuse me, nurses. Who's apple juice? It got left in the bathroom. Whatever. So you're in my thoughts. So um, there you go. Don't touch Uranus. And so that was my day. Let's move on. There's no really calm, cool, collected segue here. This is just what we're doing. We're just going on into consciousness now. Let's talk about consciousness. I got so much stuff open on my computer. I'm trying to see what this is. Oh, this is Daily Caller stuff, Ben Shapiro stuff. I'm getting rid of all this. And boy, the whole camper's shaking. And I'm going to get rid of that. And there's that. Here we go. I want to talk about consciousness in the brain. What are we going to do today, brain? Same thing we do every day. So here we go with it. And the consciousness in the brain, it's the greatest mystery of the human mind, of the human beings, humanity. Scientists consider consciousness to be the granddaddy of all the mysteries of human behavior, like we talked about last night. At the most simple level, the question of consciousness involves what causes us to be consciously aware of our experiences. How are we able to see colors, hear sounds, smell odors, experience sensations, and have emotions? How does all that stuff work? And there's my son Sam. Uh, you looking for something in here at all? Just adjusting the heaters? I have no idea. And so, if you ask most people where consciousness comes from, they're of course going to say it's the brain, obviously. And activity in the brain is associated with seeing, hearing, smelling, sensing, thinking. And if we damage the brain in certain ways, then some people end up being not conscious at all. So, but here's the problem with all this consciousness stuff. Nobody has even the slightest idea of how the brain produces consciousness. What does it do? If in fact it even does. Your brain is composed of about 100 billion neurons. They send electrical, chemical signals amongst themselves, which receive input from receptors of various kinds located around the body, such as the receptors in your eyes, your ears, your nose, your skin. But transmission, as we found over the last couple of days, isn't consciousness. That's meaning transmission from my eyes to my brain. That's not consciousness. It's easy to see that neurons transmit information, somewhat like information's transmitted along a telephone line or within a computer network. And Scientists know a great deal about how neurons communicate with each other, but transmitting information is not consciousness. Telephone systems and computer networks receive, process, and pass along information. And they do things on the basis of the information they receive, but they don't have personality. So we not only receive and process information, for example, about colors, smells, sounds, physical touch, but also experience those things consciously. We see, we hear, we experience emotions, pain, and pleasure in ways that telephone and computer systems presumably don't really do because they're not conscious. And so this goes on. This is a recap a bit in theme of what we've um, trying to talk about the last few days. Not trying to, have been talking about the last few days. Boom, there I got that sentence out finally. So the question is, where do our personal subjective experiences actually come from? To say it more vividly, your brain is made up of neurons, blood vessels, connective tissue, other biological matter. Your brain is really just a piece of meat, a meathead. It's a 3 pound around in your head. So, how does a piece of meat have sensations, have images? How does it dream about Native Americans wanting to plot to attack your home? Why does it make up things like that in your head? Why does it have thoughts? Why does it have emotions? How does a piece of meat make a mind or have a conscious experience? Where does that spark of life, that consciousness come from? What gives the piece of meat its consciousness? Consciousness theorists call this question the explanatory gap, and we kind of talked about that the other day. It's between explaining how the brain works and explaining what produces consciousness. And we know a great deal about how to process information, how the brain does that, but we have no idea how it produces consciousness, despite centuries of philosophy, scientific research being devoted to the question. And there are, of course, all kinds of things that scientists don't understand. And as I've said before, many times, veils that we cannot pierce with science. We just don't get them. We don't understand them. We don't know how to explain them. What is life? So it's a series of chemical reactions. Well, what causes that reaction? What makes the piece of meat produce consciousness? And there's the binding theory of consciousness. Um, and we talked about that a little bit with some different words. It's not to say that many theorists haven't offered explanations as how the brain is related to consciousness. Many of these more recent explanations have tied in ideas from quantum physics. But most experts find that all these explanations are seriously lacking, at least for them. And we really don't know anything when it comes down to it. And one theory links consciousness to the processes through which the brain integrates all the information that's coming in from various senses and binds them together into one experience. For example, when you're having a conversation with somebody, the image of the person's face comes through the eyes. The sound of their voice uh, is being processed as well, but in very different parts of your brain. And your interpretation of what they're saying is happening somewhere else in the brain, the way you understand the language they're speaking. Yet you have a single unified experience in which the movement of the person's mouth is timed perfectly with the sounds coming out of it, and you're instantly interpreting the words as you hear them. Those three functions going on all at once, which are very high technical functions of the brain. And your brain is somehow taking these very distinct inputs that are coming in through different senses and binding them together in one conscious experience. And so then there's from seeing to consciousness. None of this really explains where the conscious experience itself came from. That is, even if we explain how the brain integrates all these various channels of input, this incoming information, we still haven't explained why you consciously see and hear the person. Why do you see and experience things consciously being there? But you do. You consciously see somebody's the blue shirt the person's wearing, their facial expression, uh, and you consciously hear and interpret what they're saying. You interpret the language that you know. So we have computer software that can register and report the color of his shirt, interpret his words, even recognize the face. But again, the software probably doesn't have a conscious experience. If we didn't already know that people have conscious experiences, there's nothing whatsoever that we know about the brain that would lead us to think that they do. We can't find anything in the brain that causes consciousness. So, and this leads us into a topic I want to talk about, but not tonight, defining reality in life sciences. So, maybe the brain doesn't make consciousness. The difficulty in making inroads into the question of consciousness has led a lot of scientists and philosophers to suggest that we must be thinking about the question entirely wrong, that our basic assumptions about how the brain works has to be off base somewhere along the way. And some experts in consciousness have suggested that we've been wrong in assuming that the brain creates consciousness. They suggest that consciousness exists outside of us in the external world, and our brains are tapping into it using consciousness rather than creating it. Other scientists have suggested the problem is more apparent than real, that we've fallen into a trap of thinking about consciousness in a way that's not accurate. So that we're trying to solve a problem that doesn't really exist. Others are convinced that consciousness is just an unusually complex process that we simply don't understand yet. But we're someday, when we conduct enough research and have enough information, we will. That's what they say. But for now, the fact is that we just don't know what consciousness really is or where it comes from. And if you want to become an instant scientific celebrity, become as famous as Darwin, Einstein, Watson, Crick, all these guys, the guys who discovered DNA, go out and discover the source of consciousness. Don't give me a faith story. Don't give stories and then discover the source. It's among the most baffling mysteries in all of science. And that kind of brings me around to I wanted to talk about what role does human consciousness play in the quantum system. You all know what quantum systems are? Let's look it up for a quick definition. Quantum system. What's a quantum system? What do you know about it? A quantum system. Quantum is a lightning or a lighting control. It's kind of an energy management system of your brain. That's the quantum part. Um, in physics, an open quantum system is a quantum mechanical system that interacts with an external quantum system, which is known as the environment or a bath. In general, these interactions significantly change the dynamics of the system and result in quantum dissipation, such that the information contained in the system is lost to its environment, because no quantum system is completely isolated from its surroundings. So it's very interesting when you start looking into this and start trying to come up with a definition of what is a quantum system. How about you guys? What do you think a quantum system is? What do you get? Dr. Sam Beckett. Yep. Somebody said that's the first thing I saw. Oh, quantum leap. Yeah, quantum leap. That came to my mind too. I bet they say that to keep their funding, said Matt Finn. Steak and kidney pie and a beer, counterbalance. So Matt Finn said, I'd argue that you're never unconscious, only in another state of conscious. And I agree with you on that, Matt. We're never really gone from our consciousness. It's just a different state. And our consciousness then starts working through our subconscious. It's that stuff that happens in that altered state while we sleep. And it produces the processes that help us dream, or that make us dream, that help us process information. Amanda B says steak and kidney pie and a beer counterbalance. That's true. And let's see. I'm just looking to see what some of you guys were saying in here while we were going on and on. Beth Kirkham says, based on what is known, all areas of the brain are able to participate in both conscious and unconscious thoughts. Right. Do you have to be consciously thinking about your heart beating? No, your brain takes care of that. How about breathing? What if you had to be consciously aware that you were breathing and you had to keep breathing consciously? As soon as we fell asleep, we'd die of suffocation. That's good, Beth. And they're talking about you on Andromeda 7 right now, Captain. Oh, cool. Teresa asked me if I would come on the show either next week or it's 2 weeks from tonight. I can't remember. Might be a week from tonight. So, moving on. There's a recent study done by Harvard, said Beth Kirkham on this. Hey, Susie Q. Just saw that you're in. Good to see you. Amanda B says snorkels. Yeah. I don't know what that was in relation to exactly, but I know they help you breathe underwater. Not fully underwater. The snorkel has to be sticking out of the water. It's like breathing through a straw. Let's see. Amanda says, who just said they were burning? I don't know. Ears. Yeah. Let's see. D-Wave computers are evil, says Morgan Snow. I'll have to trust you on that. Come on, says Amanda. Breathing. Okay. I'm not quite sure. I'm not following the whole thread. I get that you're on board and you're talking. Breathing. Come on, ears. I breathe through my nose, Amanda, not my ears. Just letting you know. So, if you could breathe through your nose, imagine the things you could do. So, I think it's mind over matter. I don't matter if they don't mind. There you go, says Field Guy. So, Steve Clark says at times I have to remember to breathe for some strange reason. That's interesting. Sometimes I catch myself not breathing, and I go, oh, why wasn't I breathing? So, a little glitch in the system, maybe. So, this whole thing of this, let's get back to this quantum issue about what was I saying? The science of philosophy, the science and philosophy of consciousness. No, that's not where I am. I'm here. Talking about the whole quantum system. And Descartes' flawed anatomical solution to all of this. René Descartes, he tried to solve this problem automatically. He knew that the brain was the bodily organ, the piece of meat that's responsible for action. So the mechanism by which the mind interacted with the world has to reside there. And by the way, when you look around yourself right now, you're looking through your eyes, where do you feel the seat of your soul is? It's your brain, it's your head, behind your face. That's where we see. We don't feel from here, although we sometimes get reactions there. We feel with our face, our brain, our head. Descartes also knew that there's a network of nerves through the body that are in part responsible for taking data about the interaction of the world and the body back to the brain, where they somehow gave rise to the observation and were responsible for the movement of the muscles by the mind. And so he figured that these nerves would be tubes, much like the veins and the arteries that crisscross our bodies. And when veins and arteries carry blood pumped by the heart, these nerve tubes would carry a different fluid, animal spirits. That is, spirits in the sense of a liquid, not spirit in the sense of a soul. But for Descartes, soul, mind, and spirit, he was a trichotomist, would have the same sense. It's through disturbances in the flow, a great disturbance in the force of the animal spirits, that the mind would receive news of the physical world, sending out its commands to the rest of the body. And according to Descartes' hypothesis, the part of the brain that's responsible for this is the pineal gland. It's a small part of the brain that had the twin virtues of being centrally located, and Descartes not having any idea what else it might be doing. It's through the manipulation of the animal spirits by the pineal gland that the mind connects with the body, and that we have the interaction between these two distinct parts of reality, mind and body. And so it turns out, of course, that this theory fails, it's faulty. We know that the nerves don't carry a subtle fluid, and that the pineal gland is responsible for producing melatonin, a hormone that plays a crucial role in sleep and our bodily rhythms. But the central metaphysical question is still with us. Is there a single sort of thing? In reality, just material? Or is there some other sort of entity? For Descartes, this sort of entity was a soul. And it was a particular soul to humans. Animals, he thought, for theological reasons, can't have minds or souls. And clearly, Descartes did not have pets. Now, I know our pets have minds. I described what Gipper did this morning in running. Stupid stuff he does. He knows right where the food is. He knows right what time to bring you there. And he will push you until you get his food. So he knows what it is. He even knows by your speech. Are you hungry? Yeah, he's hungry. And he knows. But when he's doing things he's not supposed to do, chewing on clothes, chewing on socks, chewing on shoes that don't happen to be put up out of his reach, does he know he's doing a wrong thing? Maybe when confronted by the human, but there's all these things that animals do. And we talked about that last night. So over time, the theology was weaned from the dualist view, and living things were simply held to process what French professor Henry Bergson called élan vital, a force, a vital force, or vital impulse, what the German thinker Arthur Schopenhauer called the will to be. And living things have a will that non-living things do not have. It's this will, this power to desire, this cause to happen through internal means that separates the living in the universe from the non-living. There's the materialist and the dualist view of the brain that states and the mind that states. The brain is relevant here. It's necessary, but it's not sufficient. We can't take a CAT scan and see that when we have certain kinds of thoughts, that a certain area of the brain is active. When we have a certain sort of sensory experience, a completely different region lights up. You can have those. I think I said can't earlier. We can conclude that there's this correlation between the state of the brain, the mind. The mind and the brain are even two different things. The brain is the physical meat. and the human experience. There's a difference between them. But there's also a correlation between the state of the brain and the human experience. But the dualist will say that this correlation is a relation between two different things. And the materialist, someone who denies dualism, someone who contends that solely that there's only one sort of metaphysical entity, and that reality is strictly and solely material, must hold that the brain states and mental states are the same thing, and that they're different descriptions of the same occurrence. The dualist, on the other hand, holds that the brain states and the mental states are fundamentally different from one another. We can point to the spot in the brain that's active when I feel pain in my stubbed toe. But the pain I feel, the experience of pain, isn't the same thing as the neural activity. The two are linked, but they're different, according to the dualist. They're the same, according to the materialist. But consciousness, for the dualist, is completely different. It's non material. And this goes on. We got a whole lot of other information about this. We're going to talk about Schrodinger's cat. You ever heard of that? The experiment that was called Schrodinger's cat. We don't have time to get into it tonight, but we're going to talk about that tomorrow. It's a thought experiment called Schrodinger's cat, and it's kind of troubling. The idea is that we can easily create what are called spin correlated particles. Spin correlated particles. I'm going to put that on a shirt for the show. Electrons that have a property spin. It's not that little ping pong balls are spinning, but the effect is much like what physicists recognize in the angular momentum of a rotating charged object. Blah, 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 blah. Might be going in one ear and out the other. We'll hit this stuff tomorrow in full force and talk about that. About Schrodinger's cat. Oh, he best not have done something bad to a cat, says Steph. And you know what, Steph? We'll have to find out tomorrow. So like a cliffhanger almost. Oxy and beer Friday night for 3 hours. There you go, Steve. If I don't use up all the Oxy before Friday, I only have 3 or 4 pills left. And I've had about 8 that have lasted me for 2 years. So I may take one tonight. I know I'll take one tonight. Vicodin is Steph. I tried Vicodin and it doesn't agree with me. I always seem to get little stomach aches when I take Vicodin. Amanda B says, dope. You reckon and you say dope. Not sure what you guys are talking about. Maybe it's about Oxy and beer. Oxy and beer. Don't go for the one. And Steve Clark, see you later. Thanks for being here. Amanda B says, careful, matey. I'll be as careful as I can be. And I can get you hooked up, says Doug Sack. Yes. Call me. Let's see, what did Field Guide say? I can't swallow pills. I chew them. Oh, some pills you aren't supposed to chew, Field Guide. It's bad for you. So there you go, folks. That's about all I got for tonight. I'm in enough pain-driven anxiety tonight that I think I'm not thinking beyond what's right in front of my face, which is the end of the hour. And so we're going to hit this more tomorrow night, and we're going to talk about it later. And I think I'll be just fine. I have a feeling this isn't as bad as it feels, and that it'll just go away. So eventually, it's going to wear down like it did before. The last couple of weeks, and it'll be gone. I got weird bumps in my rib cage now, though. It's kind of funny. So you're welcome, Barbie D. Awesome. Awesome. She says, you got to say it that way. I say, awesome. Mushies, everyone, says Steph. Yeah, Mushi's all right. Thanks so much, Captain. Sending extra love and healing, says Michelle. And thank you very much, Michelle. And everybody else, thank you for being here. Corey Blake, so good to see you. Your appearances are not always every day, but when I see you, I'm glad you're here. Makes me feel good that you come into the room. Beth says, Scotty, you need to go to bed. Take those meds. See, sometimes it just hits me for nothing. Just making a sound like that. It presses my lung against my rib cage differently. So, sorry, not being a big baby about it. It just hurts, and I'm letting you know it hurts. There's a good story there, too. It ain't the years, honey. It's the mileage. And so, there you go, folks. Don't squeeze too tight, Michelle. Trying to get back, says Corey. Good thing, Corey. Be good to see more of you. Eat a joint and smoke a carrot, says Field Guy. Favor of love and light and peace and all and health to all my brothers and sisters, says Susie Q. Amanda B says smile and enjoy your Z's. While you're over there, what is it, 2 in the afternoon over there now? Tomorrow, Amanda B? So it's tomorrow in Amanda B's neck of the woods, and it's already 2 in the afternoon. And she's probably sunbathing in the winter weather. Down under. And study as she goes, says Matt Finn. Sail a new horizon at dawn. Amen to that, brother. All right, guys, you have a good night. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening in. One of these days, we'll get to be a professional radio show again. And it's no fault of anything. It's not the radio station's fault. Nothing like that. It's just me getting my shite together to make sure we can make this happen in both venues. And from the makeshift studio in Lake Charles, Louisiana, I send you on your way. So tonight, live long and prosper. Have a good night. See you tomorrow. Good night.